Industrial sewing machines aren't really all that expensive, but if you're limited on space, or you don't really have the capability to work on it yourself as if you're like not mechanically inclined, then what's the alternative? Because once you start jumping into thicker fabrics like vinyl or leather, or even duck canvas, things start to get a little hairy with those domestic sewing machines. So you might not have the space for this thing, but you have the space for this thing. So let's talk about semi-industrial sewing machines like the Janome HD9. And before anyone asks the question, no, I'm not sponsored. In fact, I actually owned the Janome's M7 Continental prior to getting the HD9. The whole reason that I swapped out was because I wasn't actually using most of the features of the M7 Continental. There was nothing wrong with the machine. I also had a bruised ego because I lost a quilting race against Quiltoni, who is a professional speed quilter. But I digress. So what's the big deal with an industrial machine anyway? Mostly has to do with a couple of big factors that you're not going to find in a domestic sewing machine, like the torque of the motor, the amount of work area because of the throat space, and thread sizes. But if I walk over here and I look at the Juki, the thing is, it's bolted into a table. And it's not even a pretty table, no matter how much I do with LED lighting and funny googly eyes. It's still an industrial table. And not everybody has space for that. Goodness knows I'm running out. I think I'm one extra laser shy of not having a room to myself anymore. So the thing is, gang, if you look at that thing, you're probably wondering, how am I going to get that to a shop if I have a problem and need repairs? Truth of the matter is, you don't. You either fix it yourself or you pay for somebody to come to your house. And that just depends on your area. I'm lucky enough to live in an area where there's several people that are qualified to work on a Juki industrial machine in the home. But that's not always the case. So I can certainly understand when people are very wary of hopping into the industrial machine category. The thing is, there's semi-industrial sewing machines. They're kind of like a hybrid between a domestic sewing only machine and an industrial like the Juki DU1181N, which, by the way, all the industrials have like these weird numbered names. They're definitely not cheaper than an industrial machine. The trade-off is you have something that is a little more reasonable to work with. It's heavy. That's an all-metal body apart from like some of the plastic decorative bits along the top. But if I needed to, I could pick that up and take it to a shop for repairs. I could also pick it up and put it in a closet and have the table for something else if my office wasn't dedicated to a sewing empire. They absolutely can use larger needles and larger thread sizes. This one in particular actually comes with a very powerful DC motor. It has up to 5 pounds of downward pressure on that presser foot. The torque alone, coupled with the appropriate needle, is gonna puncture through some very thick material. The other thing about a semi-industrial like the HD9 is that it is a straight stitch only. They're definitely not going to be as fast as an unregulated motor on an industrial machine. That said, I have my Japanese servo motor dialed in to like the absolute slowest that I can go on the Juki. Mostly because I'm scared to death of accidentally shoving my finger through there and hitting it with a size 21 needle. So realistically speaking, the fastest speed of the Janome HD9 is technically right now faster than what I have set for my Juki. I don't go that fast, but I like to pretend I can. Sometimes a semi-industrial machine that errs more on like the domestic side of things is gonna have a smaller work area, basically the throat in here. But since this was actually designed for the quilter in mind, it's comparable and pretty much the exact same throat space that I have on the Juki. Also, the clearance of the presser foot and its lift is pretty much the same thing as well. Mind you, I am talking about a specific Juki, which is the DU1181N. There may be other industrial Jukis that have a much higher clearance with the foot, but I don't care about those. Semi-industrial machines like the HD9 also tend to be very manual. There's no computerized components to slow crap down, which is also one of the reasons why I kind of veered away from the M7 Continental. Again, a great machine, just wasn't for me. That's just how comfortable I got sewing with an industrial machine. The idea of using something that's computerized just irks me now, and I say that as a programmer. Oh, the best part? Comes with a knee lift, and the reverse lever is in the same position. So if I need to, I can seamlessly work between the different machines, because at least my muscle memory isn't all janky at that point. And trust me, when it's 2 in the morning and you're trying to finish a bunch of corsets for Dragon Con, muscle memory is all that gets you through it. So let's just sit right down with the machine and go over things. Like I said, it's got a really powerful DC motor. That whole 5 pounds downward pressure, that's gonna help feed thicker materials through easier. But that's also gonna help with that needle, so that's gonna jab through several layers of fabric. Which of course, if you wanna graduate from just doing things with quilting cottons and maybe some twill, you're gonna need that. A domestic sewing machine isn't gonna give you that kind of power. I don't care how much it costs. It simply will never get you there. One little caveat, no matter what machine you're gonna end up using, you always have to use the appropriate thread, tension, and needle size. Needle type too, I guess. Although honestly, I've only ever used like universal. Professional sewing content creator. It also helps to have one of these guys. See that thing? That's a humper jumper. Typically a machine's gonna come with one of these things. This is basically gonna help you snowboard over some of the humps and lumps and all the bumps that are in your fabrics, like bigger seams. So let's go over some of the little features, because really, I mean, it's very much not computerized, so it's fairly easy to figure things out. You got your stitch length, you got your upper thread tension, then there's this little tension knob that no one touches. I actually don't know why. You can have bobbin winding separate of your thread winding, but I really just do the whole snip the thread, tie it off, and then pull it through later trick. The speed dial is super important. Now, this is pretty typical. You'll find this on a lot of domestic machines as well nowadays. But if you want to go fast, go ahead and crank it all the way up. Even I don't sew at that speed. It has like this mechanical auto threading thing, but I always have to look it up and I never remember. So I just basically whack to the thread end and push it through the eye of the needle. I said it. This is so I don't get flagged for kids. One feature I never really thought I would use because it's so crappy on domestic machines is the auto cutter. In the past, when I've used an auto cutter, the thing that I've had to deal with is like getting all of the thread underneath bird nested. It never looked clean and it drove me up the wall, so I stopped doing that. Also, if you end up using an industrial machine, you don't have that feature anyway. The bobbins are larger. They're not the same size as what you would see on like my Juki. However, they are slightly bigger than you would find on a domestic sewing machine. That is particularly why you're able to use the thicker threads. If you had an average size bobbin for a domestic sewing machine and you try to use thicker thread, you might make a quarter of a bag before you have to refill the bobbin. And I'm all up for a game of bobbin chicken, but that's a little too risky. It's a side-loading bobbin as well. You just have to lift up the steel plate at the top and drop the side to access the bobbin. Now you can adjust the bobbin case tension, but I never do that. If you are going to do that for the varying threads, make sure you get a second case and clearly label what its purpose is for. For example, when I want to use Tech 75 or thicker threads, I have a different bobbin case. Then I switch back to the other bobbin case when I'm gonna do more domestic style things, or basically just garment sewing or quilting. Sorry, I hate quilting. No matter what Tony says, I hate quilting. Don't trust her. All right, that's enough jibber jabber. Let's move on to some demos. In these demonstrations, I'll be using Oregon HL/5 needles in size 14. You can use universal needles if you want, I just happen to have these on hand. The important thing to know about the HL needles is to insert them such that the indentation above the needle's eye is on the right-hand side. The thread goes in from left to right, not forward to back. I'm also using Tex 80 bonded polyester thread from Geeky Hardware. Since I'll be sewing with thicker materials, thicker thread, and a larger needle, I'm gonna set my stitch length to be 3.5 millimeters. I also increased my upper thread tension by 2 full turns. First, I'll just stitch through a single layer of vinyl. Sometimes vinyl gets stuck to the presser foot, so a non-stick or roller foot is required. As you can see here, no such need. The stitching turned out really nice, so I know I have my tension set correctly and can move on. Next, I'll fold the vinyl in half and just do the 2 layers. While not the most robust demonstration, I wanted to make sure to ramp up slowly and not YOLO right into 10 layers. I'm still not getting any kind of struggle from the machine, and the stitching continues to look good. Now let's try some bag stabilizer. There's 2 stabilizers that I like to use for heavily structured bags, Decaville 1 and Peltex. I'm going to start by sandwiching the Decaville 1 between the 2 vinyl layers. Regardless of if it's fused or not, Decaville has a tendency to gum up needles. You can see I'm not getting any kind of resistance from the machine, and certainly no residue on the needle. Next, I'll do the same thing, but with the Peltex. Peltex is a lot less dense than Decaville 1, so it's not really gonna stress the machine out. Still, I think it's good to see the machine chomping through all of these thicker materials in real time and not sped up. The stitching still looks really clean and consistent, so let's embrace our inner Cassian and whip out the thickness. For this demo, I'll fold everything in half. This gives us 2 layers of heavy stabilizer and 4 layers of marine vinyl. Measured up, this is a 1/4 inch of heavy-duty materials. The only change that I'm gonna make is to increase the stitch length from 3.5 to 4 millimeters. You'll always want to increase your stitch length as you go up in thickness. I'm only going slowly out of an abundance of caution. A domestic sewing machine would be crying right about now, so color me impressed. Okay, so what about leather? Here I have a 4-ounce top grain leather. This is pretty thick stuff. I'm leaving the machine set to 4 millimeters for the stitch length since leather is a natural material and more prone to ripping than a marine vinyl. Again, the Janome HD9 is stitching through it without any problems. For my last trick, I'll fold this strip of 4-ounce leather in half and sew through both layers. Mind you, I'm not using a leather needle. This is still just a size 14 Oregon HL by 5. It's like not even having trouble with it, and I'm not sure if I should be afraid or start a new religion. Right. So, as I was saying, that semi-industrial Janome HD9 can handle all the thickness you can throw at it. If you were to travel back in time, probably 8 years ago, I actually had a Viking Epic. I thought top of the line meant top of the line performance and a better motor. No, it didn't. Anyway, I had to go up to size 18 needles in order to be able to go through vinyl, and even then, most of the time the motor would lock up. And then, of course, the little computer would shut down. So as you can imagine, that's when I started looking at industrials. But honestly, this isn't something I thought I'd be able to do on that machine until I gave it a shot. I mean, let's just hold this up so you can see the thickness of the genuine leather. So thick. And then you can even see how nice that stitching looks. Of course, noting that when I did the thicker layers, I did bump up to 4.5 millimeters for my stitch length. Now, by contrast, look at all of the thickness that I went through with the vinyl. That's 4 layers of vinyl with Peltex and Decaville heavy in between. I will admit though, I probably should have adjusted the tension maybe a full half turn when I bumped up to like going crazy and doubling everything. But otherwise, it chewed through it like a hot knife through butter. And 100%, this is the max that I would ever do for bag making. I am kind of uninterested in doing anything overly complex with like a really hard, rigid structure anyway. But if you're looking for that kind of machine, then maybe you want to consider something like a cylinder head, which is completely different. Now, like most domestic machines, the semi-industrial Janome HD9 does have some accessory options. Most of them are geared toward garment sewing and quilting. I do have a handful of things though, because it does help when I do the garments, specifically like a rolled hem foot. But when it comes to quilting, I really do like their stitch in the ditch foot. Oh, and they have a 1/4 inch foot too. To be completely honest, I do question sometimes if I still need my Juki. And I think that if space ever got to be a big problem in here, I would offload the Juki. It's just one of those machines that once you invest in it, it's kind of hard to get rid of. Also, it's on my 2nd floor, which means it's permanently here until somebody burns the house down. Don't tell my insurance company I said that. Okay. Now, when I bought the Juki, I had tons of space. I wasn't doing anything with lasers or machine embroidery, so it wasn't really like a big worry for me. But now I kind of feel the walls caving in. So anyhow, I hope that helps you kind of figure things out for yourself. Get a feel for like the option of a semi-industrial machine like the Janome HD9 and weigh that against getting something purely industrial like what I've got, which is the Juki DU1181N. I have to say it like that by nodding because otherwise I forget one of the numbers. Let me know if you have any questions using the comment section below the video, or if you want me to try something for you. Alternatively, you could go find a Janome dealer near you and just go in and try it. Just be forewarned that the price is gonna be anywhere from like $1,800 to $2,200. It just depends on sales, time of the year, etc., etc. I usually don't like to bake that info into a video like this because it changes so much, but just understand that you gotta have a budget going in, because you're basically trading having the full like industrial thing for something somewhat industrial but doesn't take up half of your room. And again, remember, it's straight stitch only. So if you like to do ziggy-zaggy things, make sure you have another machine on the side for that. Anyway, hope this helped. Feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because as my power grows, so does my ego.